officials in Canada. Canada is preparing to select its next prime minister, and the President of the United States is taunting them. Quote, "Good luck to the great people of Canada," President Trump wrote in a Truth Social post this morning, adding, quote, "Elect the man who has the strength and wisdom to cut your taxes in half, increase your military power for free to the highest level in the world, have your car, steel, aluminum, lumber, energy, and all other businesses quadruple in size with zero tariffs or taxes if Canada becomes the cherished 51st state of the United States of America." John King spent time in Ontario and British Columbia ahead of Canada's national election today, and of course is still here. What did you hear from Canadian voters?
I'm going to speak a sentence you will never hear in the United States. There's a big national election, and Donald Trump is by far the most unifying force. You speak to voters in Canada, and they can be conservative, they can be liberal, they can even be more to the left of the Liberal Party, support the New Democrats or support the Green Party. Listen here, 3 different voters, this is in Ontario, say, what's your number 1 issue in this election? Donald Trump.
It's more Donald Trump. I feel like he's a bully in this situation. We're supposed to be allies. We thought we're on like a friendship level.
We're just sick of him. You know, and it's only been 3 months into the term. I never thought I would put up a Canadian flag, but I think when it comes down to crunch time, Canadians really gather up.
There is no friends no more. The biggest thing in Canada is we have friends all over the world. How many friends does Americans have right now?
Trump's insults about 51st state, about calling the prime minister governor, they have created this wave of nationalism in Canada. 3 of the voters you saw there, the 2 women, sisters-in-law, and Toby Gorman at the hockey rink, they were going to be Green Party voters. They were going to be Green Party voters, but they want whoever wins, they know the Green Party can't win enough seats to elect a prime minister. They want that person to have a mandate to stand up to Trump. So they are going to vote Liberal and give up who they would normally vote for because of this fight with Trump. At the end was Peter Hamilton, 75 years old, has a beautiful maple syrup farm. He's a conservative. His party was leading by 25 points at the beginning of the year. He's seen the historic swing in the polls. He knows the Liberals are likely to win. We'll see when they count the votes. And what he is saying is the United States is not our friend anymore. Canada needs to rethink everything, defense spending, economic markets, and so we better work together. So Donald Trump has changed the way Canadians are thinking about their election because they think they've lost their friend and their neighbor, that Trump took this from neighborly to nasty, and they need to stand up.
And people, of course, who watch Inside Politics may have a sense of what's going on there, but just to sort of underscore that Justin Trudeau is not going to run for prime minister again, but his party is the one that is benefiting from what Donald Trump is doing and continuing to taunt his fellow conservatives to the north.
Right.
And that is why the conservative candidate, Pierre Poilievre, said the following on social media on X this morning. "President Trump, stay out of our election. The only people who will decide the future of Canada are Canadians at the ballot box."
They were up 25 points at the beginning of the year. The problem for Poilievre is that he is with Trump on some issues. He talks about the woke institutions and coming out with things like that. He's a younger, sort of a flipper politician. But again, unifying factor that Trump has been, both Mark Carney, now the prime minister and the Liberal leader who took over for Trudeau, and Poilievre have proposed these different details, but using government money to help Canadian industry that Trump is attacking with tariffs and everything like that. Trump has their economics are actually quite similar, because Trump has brought them together. This was an election about change at the beginning of the year. Now it's an election about Trump. And Carney he's viewed by Canadians, he's serious, he has central bank experience, he understands the economy because of his bank experience both here and in London. And so people have said, oh, Donald Trump, you're trying to make us dump these guys? A, no. And number 2, we need an adult to stand up to Donald Trump, and at least the late polls show they think it's more Carney and the Liberals.
I don't think you can underscore enough how much has changed in such a small amount of time. Also, if you're Trudeau, do you wish that maybe you had been able to ride that wave a little bit longer? Because the race to replace him was basically to be prime minister for a few more weeks or so until this election happened, because the Liberals were in such a bad position. And President Trump has just changed that entirely, and he doesn't seem to regret it. I mean, he really enjoys sort of trolling the northern neighbor.
And it's also to see and hear those voters you talked to, John, in Canada, so angry. I mean, that tells you everything you need to know. And I mean, there was one person at a hockey rink, so we've seen the Canadians angry or animated there. But generally speaking,
they almost apologize for it. They say we're really nice people, but we're really
they
mad
say
at you.
sorry.
I've heard that too.
Yeah, our reporter Jim Fusagara was in Ontario. He was in Windsor. And their sister city is Detroit. There used to be a bus between the two, and that bus was canceled by Windsor because of this.
10 seconds.
Well, and then of course both candidates also agree that Trump is unreliable. That is the through line, and that is telling in all of what you just said.
All right. Well, we will be watching as the polls come in Canada.
Donald Trump's tariffs and his threats to annex Canada are top of mind for a lot of Canadian voters today. They are heading to the polls, of course, a federal election to decide who will lead the country through what are these uncertain times. And anti-Trump sentiment is very likely to play a big role, also overshadowing this election. Of course, Saturday's crowd ramming in Vancouver that left at least 11 people dead. A 30-year-old man is now facing murder charges for that attack. CNN's Paula Newton following the voting and the weekend news for us from the Canadian capital of Ottawa. Let's start with these elections. They are crucial. This is a difficult time for Canada, especially within the context of Donald Trump's tariffs and his threats on Canada. How is that playing out? We've talked a lot about this over the past weeks. We are at that point now. Campaigning is over. How big a role did Donald Trump and the US play in campaigning? And how likely is it that ultimately people will be voting on that as much as, if not more, than anything else?
Becky, I would say that Donald Trump has been a defining presence in this election, and that continues right to this hour. Donald Trump posting on Truth Social, he decided that he wanted to weigh in on the Canadian election, and he says, "Good luck to the great people of Canada," almost insinuating himself in this campaign, saying, "Elect the man who has the strength and wisdom to cut your taxes in half." And he goes on with a litany. I will say, Becky, that in terms of this, it is likely another troll against Canada, saying that it would be much better off as the 51st state. And I note the language here, that he is saying, look how beautiful this land mass would be, as if Canada is some kind of commodity. And it is that very thing that Canadians in this election voted on, Becky, and continue to vote on. There was a record turnout for advanced polls, a lot of people saying that there was a lot at stake, an existential threat from Donald Trump, not just because of tariffs, Becky, but because of this threat for Canada to be the 51st state. I will note Mark Carney, the Prime Minister, did say a few days ago that he does not expect that the president would try and do that in a military sense, but certainly in an economic sense to try and cripple Canada. The Conservative leader, Pierre Poilievre, shooting back at Donald Trump this morning, saying, "Stay out of our election." Becky, I think it's safe to say that the majority of Canadians would have liked to see him post that in all caps. They are emphatic here that they will decide the future, and while they may see the United States as continuing to be a close ally, they do not see Donald Trump's advances as funny in any way, shape, or form, and this election is about that threat from the president. Becky?
Which is probably why he was better off not posting that in all caps, because that's very Donald Trump-like, isn't it?